It's a disaster. Sarah can't play the violin.
Today, I attended my daughter Sarah's violin concert. However, despite eagerly waiting, she didn't show up. Worried, I went to the backstage room and found her crouched, holding her arm in pain. It seems that the intense daily practice had caused severe pain in her arm, making it impossible for her to play the violin.
Hey, we've been waiting here. Get a move on.
I could hear frustrated murmurs from the tired audience in the concert hall. The organizers were in a dilemma, discussing with the staff about what to do.
Is there anyone else who can take her place? Everyone is waiting for her. There's no substitute available.
I understand. So, what should I do then? Well, in that case. Without thinking, my body started moving on its own. I will do it. As I performed on stage, my life would take a 180-degree turn. My name is James, 42 years old. Alright, lunch is ready.
Coming.
Coming down the stairs was my wife, Isabella. Behind her, our elementary school daughter, Sarah, sluggishly rubbed her eyes as she followed Isabella.
Come on, it's almost time for school.
Sarah nodded and went straight to the entrance. From there, I could hear her sleepily say,
I'm off.
The door closed, and it seemed like she went straight to school. Ever since Sarah started elementary school, she stopped talking to us.
She's reaching that age where she starts becoming conscious of boys and such. I've heard that it becomes difficult for them to figure out how to interact with their fathers. Besides, Sarah is a kind and obedient child. I'm sure she'll start talking to us again soon.
You're right. Isabella reassured me as I felt lonely. Nodding at her words, I kissed Isabella goodbye, saying, take care. We were just an ordinary, happy family. And I, the breadwinner, was not actually a salaried employee but just a part-time worker. It might seem strange to be doing part-time work at my age. I know, it's pathetic of me. I'm always sorry. Take care at work.
It's alright. We're family, so don't worry about it. Come on, if you keep looking gloomy, I'll end up feeling gloomy too.
Isabella lightly tapped my cheek. I smiled faintly and bid farewell to Isabella. Isabella is a music teacher, and I am a stay-at-home dad working part-time. It had become a daily routine for me to prepare lunch boxes for my wife and daughter every morning. Once I confirmed Isabella had left for work, I tidied up the kitchen and headed to the living room. In the living room, there was a familiar violin on display. With its elegant and refined decoration, I picked up the violin and began to play. The melodies from my memories flowed through the sound of the violin. The beautiful sound resonated high and clear. It was the sound I had envisioned, playing smoothly as I expected, but I stopped. The smooth playing only lasted for a moment. Looking at my hand, I noticed my fingers trembling, and the bow, the tool used to play, almost slipped from my grip. Without realizing it, my breathing had become heavy. As I attempted to continue playing, the strength in my hands faded, and a numbing sensation started to creep into my arm. The bow was on the verge of falling, so I hurriedly returned the violin to its display spot. I placed it somewhat roughly. However, I didn't have the composure to check if the violin was unharmed. I was desperately trying to steady my trembling hands. Both Isabella and I used to play the violin, and we received praise from our teachers after graduating from a music college. We both loved playing the violin more than anything, but the world is unforgiving. Violinists are not scarce, both domestically and internationally. However, there are only a few who can make a living solely through their performances. It's a challenging path that requires exceptional talent and dedication. Sigh. I need to find a full-time job soon. While doing household chores, I took breaks to browse job search websites. Despite working part-time, my income was meager. I couldn't burden Isabella alone. Amidst all this, it was time for both Isabella and Sarah to return home. I hurriedly prepared dinner, opening the refrigerator multiple times. And yet, the day ended without any progress on the job search. Just like before. On Sunday, the elegant and gentle sound of the beautiful violin echoed through the room, creating a pleasant atmosphere.
Mom, are you playing the violin again?
Sarah asked Isabella. Isabella was playing a relaxed tune on the violin in the living room, her face filled with delight. She answered,
Yes, I am. Mom, do you really love the violin?
Sarah asked Isabella.
Yes, I find the gentle sound very pleasant.
While watching the two of them, I was in the kitchen, tidying up the dishes. Sarah naturally returned to her room when I went to the living room, so I made sure to clean slowly, allowing Isabella and Sarah to relax in the living room. I realized I enjoyed this time more than I thought.
Hey, Mom. Can I try playing too? Of course, you can. Here, take the violin.
In the living room, Isabella happily handed the violin to Sarah and placed her hands over Sarah's, teaching her various things.
Place your fingers here. Yes, that's it. Now, try this next. Ah. Mom, did you hear that? It made a sound. Really? That's amazing. Now, try this. Like this? Oh.
Ha! It worked in such a short time. I was also surprised. The sound came out properly. Despite being a beginner, Sarah produced a decent violin sound. Isabella and Sarah's dazzling smiles warmed my heart. From that day on, Sarah started developing an interest in the violin. At first, Isabella taught her at home, but gradually, Sarah expressed a desire to learn properly. After much consideration, Isabella and I decided to let her take violin lessons from a professional teacher. Sarah, accompanied by Isabella, eagerly went to inquire about the lessons.
Mom, hurry. Today is violin day.
Sarah's smile multiplied. Although she used to retreat to her room immediately, starting violin lessons motivated her to venture outside, which was a positive development. Then, one day, Isabella and Sarah came to me with excitement.
Hey, you.
What's up? Isabella approached me with a joyful expression. At that moment, I could only assume that something good had happened. Isabella nudged the fidgety Sarah from behind, urging her forward. Sarah timidly approached me and showed me a piece of paper. I took it in my hands, noticing it was quite thick, and it said Outstanding Achievement Award. I exclaimed in surprise and looked at Sarah, whose face was filled with the same embarrassment she used to show me when she was little. You won an award?
Yeah.
Sarah answered, blushing. It turned out that she had won a contest at her violin school. She had become so engrossed and started wearing a more joyful expression. It was truly wonderful. But the surprises didn't end there. Hello, I'm James. I greeted the violin teacher one day when Isabella, my wife, who had been called by the teacher, couldn't make it due to work. I reluctantly entered the violin classroom.
Are you Sarah's father?
As soon as I entered the room, someone grabbed my hand. Yes, I am Sarah's father. I answered nervously. I realized the person was the teacher, so I quickly added, "Thank you for your help," and bowed. The teacher, with a flustered expression, raised my head and offered me a seat. Sitting face to face with the teacher, I began discussing about my daughter, Sarah.
Sarah is amazing. She's a once-in-a-decade talent.
With the violin.
Yes, absolutely.
The teacher spoke with genuine delight, sharing Sarah's achievements. It seemed she had won numerous awards and could already play difficult pieces.
Here are the evaluation sheets we received from the judges when Sarah participated in competitions. Almost perfect scores. I must say, Sarah's performance is outstanding.
I looked at the evaluation sheets from the competition judges. Just as the teacher had said, all the scores were high. Moreover, each comment in the remarks section was full of praise for Sarah. The sheets not only contained words of admiration but also precise opinions on what should be improved or corrected in her performances. Each judge seemed to have taken the task seriously, and the sheets were filled with an incredible amount of feedback.
So, I strongly recommend studying further as a professional musician.
As the teacher spoke, they handed me a slightly thick document. I listened to the teacher's words and accepted it. Is this a change of plans?
Yes, Sarah is motivated, so how about changing the study plan to focus on becoming a professional?
I couldn't quite grasp the reality of it. To think that my own daughter had such talent. I was filled with mixed emotions and pondered over it. Then, there was a knock on the door.
Excuse me. It's Sarah. Can I come in?
I hurriedly checked the time. It was already the end of Sarah's lesson. Welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you for coming, Dad.
Sarah thanked me, looking a bit bashful. The teacher also smiled and nodded happily, observing Sarah.
Well then, please consider it. Sarah, I already talked to your dad about the matter.
Oh, yes. Thank you, teacher.
It seemed Sarah had already heard the discussion from the teacher. Seeing Sarah in a slightly cheerful mood, I took the conversation we had earlier more seriously. After returning home, Isabella hadn't come back from work yet, so I decided to start preparing dinner while waiting for her. Sarah immediately headed to her room upon arriving home. I couldn't hear from the kitchen, but as I walked down the hallway, I could faintly hear Sarah's cheerful humming along with the soft sound of her violin. Sarah, it's getting late. Stop playing the violin soon.
Okay.
I called out to Sarah, cautioning her from the hallway. Then I returned to the kitchen. Shortly after, I heard the sound of the front door opening.
I'm home.
Welcome back, Isabella. I greeted Isabella as I took off my apron.
Phew, I'm tired.
Thank you. Sarah is already upstairs.
Thanks. By the way, what was that about today? You were called by Sarah's violin teacher, right?
Oh, well, actually. Isabella immediately asked me about it, showing her curiosity. It seemed she was also concerned. I explained what the violin teacher had told me, trying to convey it seriously. But Isabella's face brightened more and more as I spoke. It seems like that's the case.
Oh. That's amazing, isn't it? Just as expected of Sarah.
Well, but...
I know what you're trying to say. You're worried about the difficulties. But you should also listen to Sarah's opinion. Sarah. Sarah, can you come here for a moment?
Isabella called out to Sarah, and I heard the sound of her running out of the room. It seemed she came out faster than usual.
What is it, Mom?
It's about today's conversation with your violin teacher.
Isabella started talking, and Sarah's eyes sparkled as she eagerly responded.
I want to do it. I want to challenge the violin seriously.
Sarah answered happily, looking at me and Isabella alternately. With a serious expression, I shook my head. I'm against it, Sarah.
Huh?
Sarah's face instantly fell. She must have thought I would definitely approve. Her joyful expression distorted in an instant, replaced by a pained and bewildered look. Listen, the world of violin isn't that easy. Only a handful of people can make a living from it. And aiming to become a professional means you can't easily give up, no matter how tough it gets. Sarah, you're still in elementary school. You're at an age where you can explore different worlds. You don't have to commit to the path of the violin. Isabella comforted the dejected Sarah, stroking her shoulder. Sarah held on to Isabella's hand and looked up at her.
Mom, are you also against it?
Well, I guess so.
Isabella glanced briefly at my face and then smiled gently.
I think Sarah should do what she wants.
Huh? Wait. Isabella.
It's fine, isn't it? Sarah said she wants to do it. I want to support her. But...
Isabella knelt down to match Sarah's eye level.
Okay. Your dad said the same thing, but once you start, you can't just quit right away. There will be difficult times where you have to push through. But don't push yourself too hard. If it becomes truly unbearable, you can quit. Learning to draw that line might make you a mature person.
I let out a deep sigh at Isabella's words. Isabella. I don't want Sarah to go through the same hardships as I did. I'm against it, I said.
Oh, come on. Even the teacher gave their approval.
Isabella replied. It's not about that issue. We had a little argument between the two of us. Looking back, it probably wasn't the best thing to do in front of Sarah. Nevertheless, I desperately tried to convince Isabella. But after a while, Sarah raised her voice.
Fine. Dad.
What is it? Sarah turned towards me with a determined expression on her face.
There's a music competition organized by the Music Association coming up. I've been talking with my teacher, and I'm thinking of participating. If I win that competition, will you allow me to pursue professional studies?
The music competition organized by the Music Association. When I heard the name of that competition, my eyes widened. It was a competition that violinists, like myself, would know. That competition was quite large in scale, allowing even adults to participate. I pondered over it a lot. And in the end, I gave in. That's how it happened. From the next day onwards, Sarah started putting even more effort into practicing the violin. To fulfill Sarah's wish of practicing more at home, Isabella and I assembled the foldable soundproof room that we had stored in the warehouse. Sarah would spend every day in there, practicing. At first, Sarah played the violin with joy, but gradually, she began to practice with a serious and focused expression. Sarah, dinner's ready.
Sarah, it's time for dinner. Come down.
Isabella and I called out for dinner. It's obvious, but Sarah, who was practicing in the soundproof room, couldn't hear our voices. Isabella would open the door to the soundproof room and go to call Sarah for dinner. This became a daily routine.
Sarah, we've been telling you to set a schedule. You must eat dinner properly.
Isabella said.
But I wanted to allocate the dinner time for practice too.
Sarah replied.
That's not okay. You must eat your dinner properly. And practicing all the time is not good either. Didn't your teacher tell you that?
Yes, they did.
Sarah said, looking down as Isabella scolded her. Lately, there had been many days when Isabella scolded her like this. But the next day, she would repeat the same mistake. Sarah was truly working hard. One day, Isabella had to work late. Dinner should be ready soon. Should I go call Sarah? I asked. Since Isabella wasn't there, I went to call Sarah myself. Today, Sarah was playing the violin in the soundproof room again. I went to the room and observed Sarah's practice through the small window of the soundproof room. As I was about to open the door, I paused. I wanted to observe Sarah's practice for a little while. Something suddenly caught my attention. The violin Sarah was playing produced a beautiful sound. Whenever she started playing a piece, she would hit a wrong note and start over from the beginning. She repeated this process and then would suddenly come up with an idea, diligently taking notes. To me, it seemed like a rather rough way of practicing. She would play it over and over again until she could do it perfectly, relentlessly repeating it countless times. Ah! I should have done it like that. Ah, wait. Not in quick succession like that. Ah! I couldn't help but feel frustrated. That kind of practice would harm her body. I had been observing her for a while, but I finally couldn't hold back any longer and opened the door to the soundproof room. Sarah.
Ah. Dad. You scared me.
Sarah was surprised by my voice. Sorry. I was just curious. You've been playing that part repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. It's not going well.
Try playing the violin for a moment.
Huh?
Come on, like earlier.
Okay.
Responding to my voice, Sarah played the violin. But once again, she couldn't get it right at the problematic part. Oh, just as I thought. I placed my hand over Sarah's hand.
Huh? Dad?
Your hand was originally here, right? Imagine your strength flowing in this direction, and relax your arm. 1, 2, there, relax. 1, 2, there, relax.
Huh? Okay.
In response to my cues, Sarah started playing again. 1, 2, there. Relax. Your arm is tensed. That's it. Sarah looked surprised. She had finally managed to play the part that had been tripping her up. Sarah looked at me with joy on her face.
Wow, amazing. That's it. I guess I was exerting unnecessary force, which made my movements awkward. Thank you, Dad.
I felt embarrassed by Sarah's words. I stepped back, feeling a bit shy. I couldn't help but call out to her because I couldn't bear to watch anymore. For now, let's have dinner. It seems Mom is still at work.
Okay, I'll be right there.
Well, even though you say that, Dad is watching. Finish it up for today. Resting properly is also important, you know.
Ugh. You sound just like Mom.
Yeah, come on. Let's have dinner.
Okay.
Reluctantly, Sarah put down her violin and walked away from the soundproof room. From that day on, I started going to watch Sarah's violin practice little by little. I was worried about her, but I was happy that we could have a conversation again. I thought she would tell me not to interfere, but when it came to the violin, she listened seriously. Yes, Sarah would give her opinions about my violin guidance, but she never complained. She always listened attentively and put it into practice. Through the violin, Sarah and I started communicating as parent and child. Her expression softened over time, and I became more comfortable talking to her. And as I accompanied her during practice, I realized something: her concentration was incredible. When she played the violin, she was so focused that she couldn't hear anyone else's voice. But her playing wasn't rigid. She played with elegance and grace. Her acting skills were amazing. And she was also very obedient. She absorbed everything she was taught. The more I taught her, the better she became. Above all, she could immediately express what she was taught on the spot. I was impressed. I understand what the violin teacher meant by talent. This child definitely has talent. However, while I was surprised, Sarah was actually surprised by me. One day, while we were practicing together, she praised me.
Dad, you're amazing. I didn't know you could play the violin so well. Why don't you perform? Mom sometimes plays on holidays, right?
Well, I'm just not as brave as you are. With that thought in mind, I tightly clenched both of my hands. In the past, I was called a prodigy because I was so good at the violin. There was a time when I attended violin shows all over Japan. There was even a time when I participated in competitions 3 times a week. I loved the violin since I was little, and it was fun. So I went abroad to study to become a professional. People around me had high expectations, and I thought I could make it. But reality wasn't so sweet. In a foreign country, I first struggled with the language barrier. I couldn't speak German very well, despite being focused solely on the violin. I was always struggling with communication. Perhaps because of that, people around me started making fun of me, even without realizing that their words were hurtful. Before I knew it, it had turned into subtle bullying, and I fell into a slump. Even in such a mental state, the competitions didn't wait for me. I stood on the stage, both mentally and physically exhausted. With a performance lacking any hint of elegance, the audience responded with jeers and booing. With shame and sadness weighing on me in front of a large crowd in such a grand venue, I escaped and returned to America as if running away. Since then, whenever I tried to play the violin, that scene would flash back, and I would become unable to play. But you're different, you'll be fine. I've always been opposed to it, and I'm sorry for that. From now on, your mother and I will support you with all our might.
Dad. Sarah held my clenched fist. It felt as if she was telling me that everything would be okay. Your performances that you've been teaching me all along were amazing. I could tell right away when I heard your sound. I know how much practice and effort you put into producing this sound. No matter what others say, my dad is the best in the world.
What's this? What's this? You're saying such nice things.
Come on. I'm serious.
Ha ha ha. Thank you, Sarah. I hurriedly stood up, pretending to check the time, and then opened the door to the soundproof room, making sure Sarah couldn't see my expression. Come on, I'll start preparing dinner now. It's about time your mother comes home. In broken words, I quickly headed towards the kitchen. I was happy with my daughter's words. A few days later, the day of my daughter's competition arrived. Isabella and I anxiously awaited the results. However, we both already knew the outcome. We believed in Sarah.
All right. Should I show it?
Sarah called out to me and Isabella. We both nodded.
Ta-da!
Sarah revealed the cover. It was an award certificate. Of course.
I won first place. We did it. Thanks to both of you for supporting me. I really appreciate it.
The three of us rejoiced together. Sarah had won the competition. Moreover, she won as the youngest participant. Sarah had seized the ticket to becoming a professional violinist with her own hands. Sarah is different from me. Sarah will be fine. From now on, I vowed to support Sarah with all my strength. The day after the competition, the media somehow heard about Sarah's victory and came to our house. Sarah was being featured in newspapers and on television as a prodigious violinist. The response was so overwhelming that they hastily decided to organize a concert for the prize winners, with Sarah as the grand finale. As soon as Sarah's name was announced, the concert tickets sold out instantly. It seemed that fans were already rallying behind Sarah.
Next week, remember. Next week. Look forward to it, Mom, Dad.
Excited about her upcoming concert, Sarah repeatedly reminded me and Isabella of the date. Both Isabella and I took a day off to attend Sarah's concert. On the day of the concert, we showed our tickets to the staff and entered the venue with Isabella.
Even though it's not us performing, I can't help but feel nervous, Isabella said.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I chuckled. My hands were sweating profusely. After we took our seats, various violinists started performing one after another. Each performance concluded with thunderous applause. And finally, it was time for the grand finale, Sarah's turn. My heart was pounding loudly in my chest. Ha! Murmuring. The venue gradually grew restless. Sarah wasn't coming out, and the staff seemed to be in a state of panic, moving around hurriedly. The atmosphere in the venue felt off.
What's going on? Isn't it getting late?
Isabella wondered aloud. Yeah, you're right. Let me go check. I replied, growing extremely worried. I quickly got up from my seat and headed towards the location of the waiting room that I had been told. Along the way, the staff tried to stop me, but I informed them that I was Sarah's father, and they let me proceed, accompanying me to the waiting room where Sarah was.
Ouch.
Sarah. I heard Sarah's voice from outside the room. I rushed in, and there she was, holding her arm. Her face contorted in pain and distress, tears streaming down her cheeks. What happened? What's wrong? I disregarded the attention of those around us and hurried to Sarah's side. When she saw me, Sarah sobbed and managed to convey,
Dad, my arm hurts. I can't play.
Surprisingly, Sarah experienced excruciating pain in her arm and couldn't play the violin. It was likely due to overexertion leading up to the competition.
We've called a doctor. They should be here soon, the staff informed us.
Thank you. I replied gratefully. It seemed the staff promptly called a doctor, and Sarah received first aid treatment while enduring the pain in the waiting room. I gently stroked Sarah's head. It's going to be all right. The doctor will be here soon. Just a little longer. Stay still and rest, okay? I spoke to Sarah with all my might. Sarah, sobbing, kept holding her arm and looked around, aware of the people around her. Observing Sarah's state, I also glanced at the surroundings. The staff members seemed flustered.
What should we do? Isn't there anyone? But everyone's waiting for that girl, right?
I heard such voices. The organizers were contemplating their options, discussing with the staff.
Hey, we're waiting here. Hurry up.
I shouted, feeling the restlessness spreading throughout the venue, audible even from the waiting room. The concert couldn't proceed like this, and Sarah's reputation would be affected. That I looked at the violin placed near Sarah. It was the violin she had been practicing with. Although it was Sarah's violin, I had become familiar with it as I practiced together with her. I have made up my mind. Hey.
Why yes.
Summoning my courage, I approached someone who appeared to be the organizer. And then. I will go.
Huh.
I am Sarah's father. I will perform. I picked up Sarah's violin. I'll borrow it for a bit.
Dad.
Sarah looked at me with concern. The nearby organizer tried to stop me.
By the way, what about the violin?
I've won several competitions, so I have the skills. I confidently replied. I wasn't lying. In the past, I had won numerous competitions. Whether I still had that skill was uncertain, but my words left the organizer in contemplation. Well, it can't be helped. Originally, a cute girl was supposed to play the violin. We can't put an old man who doesn't even know how to play on stage. But now, we can't find a replacement, and we've kept the audience waiting for a while. We can't have the same performer either. That's when Sarah shouts to the organizer.
My dad is amazing. He's an incredible violinist who taught me. Don't you know James?
Huh. James.
The elderly-looking organizer seems to know me.
You're that James from back then. You've continued playing the violin.
Well, I've had a gap in my practice.
I understand. Can I leave it to you?
Oh, thank you. I tightly gripped the bow of the violin and bowed my head to the organizer.
To think we can hear your performance again. Longevity is something else. Hey. Hurry up and prepare the stage. We're going to hear James' performance.
I headed towards the stage in the venue. Before leaving the green room, I saw Sarah. She smiled and nodded at me. That I took Sarah's violin and stepped onto the stage. As the spotlight hit me and I made my entrance, the venue momentarily fell silent. But soon, people realized something was off, and the murmurs and noise started again. Facing the audience, I spoke into the microphone. I'm Sarah's father. She had an accident, so I'll be playing in her place. Before I could finish my sentence, boos erupted from the crowd.
What a joke. We've been waiting all this time. Give us a refund for the tickets.
The boos were not inconsiderable. But I moved my hand holding the violin. Assuming a playing posture, my hand holding the bow trembled. The grand venue, the dazzling stage, and the discontented voices of many people. It reminded me of the time when I was mentally unstable. But now, things were different. I looked around the audience where my daughter and wife were waiting. I found her. Isabella, looking at me with hands clasped together. I recalled the past when I couldn't perform under pressure, but then I let go of those thoughts. Taking a deep breath, I shook off everything. I played the bow, and the sound resonated. Suddenly, the venue fell silent. I couldn't even hear a cough from the audience. The hands and mouths of those who were booing stopped. Many people stared wide-eyed, listening to my performance. The time felt both long and short. I poured out everything I remembered. A tingling sensation ran through my body. But I played until the very end. I had played a complete piece on the violin. As soon as I finished playing, the venue erupted in applause. After finishing, I immediately looked at Isabella. Ah! Isabella! Tears were streaming down Isabella's face. Even from a distance, it was clear. She was smiling and crying as she looked at me. Seeing that, I finally felt like I had overcome many things. Afterwards, I confidently performed a few more pieces and returned to the green room amidst a loud applause. My arms were buzzing since it had been a while since I played so passionately. But it was a pleasant pain. I could do it again. I could play the violin.
Dad.
Sarah. Are you okay? Is your arm all right? Sarah rushed out and jumped into my arms.
Thank you, Dad. It was truly an amazing performance. It was so beautiful.
Sarah showered me with compliments one after another. I felt happiness in her words. To receive praise from my daughter. I hugged Sarah tightly in return. Thank you. It's all thanks to Sarah and Isabella. Since that incident, I no longer trembled when playing the violin. I overcame the pressure and regained my status as a violinist, and by my side, there was Sarah. Yes, we were active as a father-daughter duo of violinists. Now, we were even receiving requests to appear on television due to our popularity. Of course, Isabella, my wife, who always supported us, was by my side as well. Sarah fully recovered her arm and became even better, standing beside me. I couldn't lose either. I had been praised as a prodigy since I was young, but I was always lonely. I was bullied and alone, without anyone to rely on, but now, I wasn't alone. Wherever I was, my whole family was together. I now truly understood the importance of having a supportive family and the desire to protect my daughter. It was these thoughts that pushed me in the right direction.